about the imagining, what I call imagine Earth. So again, it's a question of going around and thinking about some questions. Okay. And the first question is, again, in a few, just maybe in a few words, what do you love about the Earth?
A lot. There's a lot.
Well, just again, just pick a few. It's fine.
I love the earth itself. The fact, walking on the grass in bare feet and feeling that sense of something so solid and concrete underneath me. There's something really special about that. I love the fact that nature happens and it changes, and it's outside my control. It's doing what it wants to do. My garden changes all the time. The seasons change, and it's that sense of there's something bigger than me, and this enormous force of nature. Yeah, it's something quite powerful about that. And I love trees. I love the ancientness of trees, and this idea of like looking at something like a tree and it's been there longer than me, longer than my mum, and it just have this sense of trees like elders with their roots deep into the earth and growing up to the sky, this sense of wisdom. Yeah, and the long shadows kind of in autumn that they create is quite powerful.
Thank you. Robert, what do you love about the Earth?
I love that it's so big and it's also so small. Like this morning, I take Bali, our dog, down to the seafront, and there's a big hill we climb, and you can look out to sea, and the sky is so big, and it's always different every day, even in the same season, in autumn or summer or what have you. It's different every day. And whether there's cloud or whether, I mean, it's really stormy and moody this morning. But other times when it's blue sky and the sun is dappling on the sea, it is just so exhilarating. And as Zahida said, it's so powerful. We can't touch it really because we're tiny in comparison. So in that sense, it's so big. But on the other hand, yeah, when you're in your garden, and this weekend I just built some raised beds, preparing them for next spring. And I noticed, because we haven't done much on this patch of earth much, there's no worms or anything in there, and I'm looking forward to getting the soil back and getting the worms and seeing the insects and everything. And just a little story, we have a myrtle tree, but it was a bush when we bought it, and we bought it from our garden in Windsor when we moved here 17 years ago, and I loved it. I love it, and it grew up. And there was a time 5 or 6 years ago when, because of stuff going on in the family, I didn't have any time for gardening, and I didn't prune it properly, and it grew at an angle. And in fact, it grew so big, about 12 foot tall, and it was in danger of falling over. And it really saddened me. I had to, about 3 months ago, I had to actually cut it down. And I took some cuttings, which I've got in my shed. But on Saturday, I went and looked at the stump, and it's shooting. And that's another thing that made me really happy, because it was like, I felt I'd said goodbye to an old friend, but actually it didn't go, it didn't leave us. It's there and it's coming back. I just love these things.
Yeah, I love the richness and the variety of the earth. we've been very fortunate in that over the years we've travelled a lot. I mean, we've actually been walking in 50 countries. So there's a lot of the quite a bit of the earth we've seen, and just the incredible variety of people and nature. It's such an interesting place, and it's full of the most things. I always think, things like the amazing thing that if you didn't know a hippopotamus existed, you'd never in a million years be able to imagine one. And it's full of the most extraordinary things and an endless number of things to actually learn about. And yet it's very small and it's very precious. I mean, the atmosphere is only 50 miles thick. Now, 50 miles on an astronomical scale is extraordinarily small. And the whole Earth works in a way to be self-sustaining. So it's exquisitely precious. And I agree that it's and complex, and we don't understand it, and I think it deserves cherishing. So that's what I love about the Earth. And that moves on to the second question, which is, imagine that it's 100 years' time, and by some quirk, you actually arrive back on the Earth in 100 years' time, and you think, gosh, this is what I'd always hoped for. We've made it, and this is the Earth that I've always hoped would exist. So, what's happening? What's happening in this Earth that you would like to see in 100 years' time? What sort of things are going on? What sort of world is it? I know this is a question that takes a bit of thought, but first thoughts are actually good. It doesn't have to be perfect, our answers. There's a point about this whole process. We're talking from the heart here, not just the head. 100 years' time, and you think this is amazing. What's going on?
I'm just thinking about birdsong. That what happened in lockdown and the quietness, and then we heard the birds singing. And actually, in 100 years, it would be wonderful if there was birdsong everywhere, and you could really hear it. The wildlife returning to the cities, and the quietness from the cars having gone or reduced.
Keep going. Anything else? Pretend you're actually there in 21. What are you noticing?
Clean air. Really, being able to breathe really clean air, and the sense of not needing to escape where you are to get nature. It's there. It's around you. Oh.
That's fine. We'll come back if you think any. Robert, it's 100 years' time, 21, and you think this is amazing. This is what I've always hoped for. What's going on?
I think it would be lovely if there was a sort of, if over 100 years, the population had become more sort of balanced somehow, organically, without anybody forcing anything, so that people had space, wherever they lived throughout the world. There were maybe sort of smaller communities or more spread out or balanced, however it happened, and people were happier in terms of living in the places they were more at one with them, that nature played a bigger part, I think, in life. And there was more, I suppose, connectivity with nature and food and wildlife and all this sort of thing. I think that there was, and people were more concerned about that and happy to live where they wanted, where they lived, than worried about what everybody else was doing elsewhere.
Yeah, for me, I'd like to see I'd like to see a peaceful world, but not a passive one. I'd like to see people. I believe we will see. I think people looking after each other and looking after the planet, and actually realizing that they can be happy with less stuff. So there's more time, there's more space, more time to be able to be with each other and to be, you know, be stewards of this beautiful planet. And I think that would be a more equal and a fairer and a happier world. I mean, that's my hope. And so this moves on to the sort of next question of this series, which is, you know, just a few words to say what sort of world do you want to leave to our great-great-grandchildren. I mean, you don't necessarily all going to have them personally, but, you know, if you think about our collective great-great-great-grandchildren, and I think it's peaceful and it's green and it's sustainable, and it's loved, I think. You know, we talk about loving an individual in our family, but I think we need to, in my view, I think the world we need to love it, because it in its way loves us. In the sense it helps us grow, and that for me is the definition of love. What you do to help things grow is love. And so we need to love the planet so it can love us back. And at the moment we're not, we're exploiting it. I haven't actually had that thought before. So thank you. So what sort of, in a few words, what sort of world do you want to leave to our great-great-grandchildren? For them to inherit, rather. Is it, what sort of, for them to inherit?
I think for me the word respect is coming up. This idea of, which feeds into kind of what you were saying, Nick, this kind of respect, being respectful of nature rather than it being an asset that we strip, and going back to that idea of taking what you need and not stripping it and taking as much as you can, but stopping for a minute to think, what do I actually need? And the joy that comes from that, from not owning so many things and not having to think about consuming all the time, and this kind of cycle that we can get on. I think stepping back from that and actually thinking about living, having a good life, rather than what you can acquire and consume.
Beautiful. Robert? Yeah, I think a world where we can, or taken all the sort of science and engineering and technology, but using it with nature rather than we always seem to be controlling nature or changing nature, as it were. So there are lots of valuable things we have now, but the purposes we use them for don't seem to be very sympathetic to nature. So I suppose letting nature play a bigger role in our lives and in determining people's lives, really. It is, of course, taking a big role, but we need to, you say, acknowledge it.
because, you know, one of the things about the COVID is that people are, you know, COVID is reminding us that nature is actually, we are part of nature, we're not above it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a tiny little molecule which is actually saying, "Oi, wake up."
Yes.
Yeah. So what's one thing, again, a final bit on this, is what's one thing we are doing, or maybe could do, which could help us to move this, the system in the directions that we want? Just one small thing. And one small thing I'm doing is taking this initiative to write this thing and try and sow some hope into this process. And I suppose, you know, another terribly small thing is, you know, having an economical car and keeping them for 10 years, you know, which is, or even keeping them basic till they wear out. I mean, which seems like sensible rather than changing things every year, you know, like proper light bulbs and not buying things you don't need, and never throwing food away if it's edible, ever. Nothing ever gets thrown away in that house. No, it always comes out as salad the following day. It's amazing the most bizarre salads you can make from leftovers, I assume. But these are terribly simple things, I think. And I'm just saying, what are you doing, or what could you do to just to sort of nudge it a bit in the direction? Because I think that, you know, where we are at the moment is made by millions of people doing lots and lots of small things. And maybe lots and lots of people doing small things in the right direction could move it forward. So what you doing? Or what could you be doing?
It's interesting. I saw a protester on the news saying that individuals can not change anything, so that's why they've got to protest. And I completely disagree with that, because I think it's, you know, take consumers. It is millions of individual consumers. Actually, if all those individuals actually changed their buying patterns. My favourite thought on this is the crisps and snacks aisle in supermarkets, which I would pretty much wipe out.
Yeah.
There's no purpose for it, really, as far as I can see. Yet crisps and snacks are obviously a massive seller, and it's interesting to think of a supermarket and all the aisles and thinks, well, what do I really need from there? Because actually, if you really think about it, you would actually have a very small shop with not many things in it at all. So yeah, I think reducing consumption is something we try to do as much as possible. We're going to be decorating, and I've got some brand new paint rollers, but the paint tray, it was really horrible and I need a new paint tray. So I went to a local shop and I said, do you just sell the paint trays? And they said, oh no, you've got to buy a new roller as well. I said, I don't want a new roller. So they said, I'll look through the catalogue, and they said, oh yeah, paint tray, $1.95. I said, can you order me one? And that's it. And that's so much with consumerism is, like we have got a joke about our co-op. You can't buy one donut, you have to buy 5 donuts. I don't want 5 donuts. And we're trying to invent, probably when we're decorating, a scenario where we can buy 5 donuts just for a joke, really. But you know, it is so true, and you know, it's a problem for single people who only want to buy a small amount of food. You've got to buy 2 or 4, and all this food will get wasted. And why can't you just buy enough for what you want, and not all the other things, really? That's
yeah. So what do you think you could, if you're really being brave next, what could you do about this next time?
Sorry, about
what if you're being brave? What could you do about this next time? when you want to buy a donut and you can only buy 5.
Well, actually, we do go to our bakers and buy
One donut.
one donut. But it's a joke about the co-op, isn't it? You can only buy 5 donuts. But yeah, so we go to our bakers and we buy 1 donut or 1 bun or whatever we need when we need it.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about, I want to write something about this, about buying local and supporting local. Is that, how do you do that? One is to just go down to your shops and ask. So many people don't do that now. They don't go and ask in a shop, especially an independent shop, whether they have something. Because often they will order it for you or know how to get it. And so that's my first thing I do. Then if I can't do that, I look round locally and go to our biggest town and see if I can get it there. If not, I try and look sort of nationally, not because of any sort of nationalist reason, but I just want to be local, really. And then if it has to be from abroad, I order it abroad, and I just do it in that order, because, you know, trying to reduce food miles or what, you know, transport or what have you, I think wherever I lived, I would try to buy local things, really.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. I think we've done really, really well. I mean, just finally, let's have 5 minutes, which is okay. Suppose that we 3 had decided to work together to make some waves in this area. What could we do?
Sticking on the local thing, you know, I see a lot of campaigns and people, you know, have hashtags buy local, and there's this live, love local thing and everything, and that's all that happens. And you know, people posters up, and I sort of think it's all very well having a slogan or a hashtag, but what do you actually do? How do you do it? Because a lot of this is about habits, and you tend to stick to your habits. And to change a habit, you need a reason and a motivation to change that. And I sort of think if you are looking to get people to say to support local production, local food, or what have you, reduce unnecessary transport, or what have you, you've actually got to talk about it and explain how to do it and show what's there. And so it is about information and education, I think, because I believe a lot of people want to do these things, but they just don't know how, because probably, I don't know, most people under, I don't know, 30, presumably they mainly shop at supermarkets or online. So how well do they know how actually to shop in an independent shop or a local retailer? So I think it is about talking about it, about showing how to do it.
Yeah. Just like it's about modeling, about people having examples, teaching. I think I've got plenty here.